Welcome into the Mecca, the first ever podcast between myself and JetsCentral. We're making it official. We gave a little test run on my channel, but now we are finally here, and it's Jets and Giants collaboration together. And it's the Mecca, and it's the Mecca New York City football, but also it also encompasses all of the NFL as well. And JetsCentral, man, congrats and welcome to the maiden voyage of our show.
Oh, man, it's so good to be here. I can't wait to get this thing rolling. A lot of stuff I want to dive into, and can't wait.
No doubt, no doubt. And just the way that this NFL Sunday went, I mean, you had a lot of surprises. You had an emotional early game against the New England Patriots. And I guess we could start there. With you guys and the 14-0 start. And, really you look at the addition of Curse to your ball club. I mean, Curse is he's making a lot of plays for you, Jermaine Curse. And, McCown had the early success, but then towards the end of the half, it kind of got rough. So first, can you take us through the emotions that you were experiencing in the first half? And when you were up 14-0, did you know that New England would still have a charge in them to end the half?
Well, right. The one thing I've known about or kind of came to figure out about watching the New England Patriots for all my life is that they have such a stacked roster and they're just so well coached. And Tom Brady is just a really good quarterback, and you can never just really count them out. Although I was thinking to myself early on in the game when we were up 14-0, like when we scored that second touchdown, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, the Jets could be 4-3. No, what was it? It would be 4-2, right? Yeah, it'd be 4-2 right now, first place in the AFC East. And I was thinking to myself, this is going to be a great game because the Jets are going to come out and they're going to shock everybody. Then they kind of, they took their foot off the gas pedal a little bit. And the Patriots, of course, came. And, really disappointing how it ended. But I will say that the silver lining behind the loss is that we competed with the Super Bowl champs right to the very end. And if it wasn't for that questionable call, it could have even been closer, or maybe we could have came out with the W. So there is a silver lining. Like I said, though, disappointing that we did lose, but overall, I'm proud of the way that the Jets fought as a team. Just wish we would have kept the foot on the gas pedal a little bit longer. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the Patriots made adjustments. They really stopped the run, in the second and third quarters of the game. And it was really, the third and ones were really frustrating, when the Jets would be in those situations, like not being able to run the football. And I look at McCown, and he is a little bit one-dimensional in some particular ways. And that's what really caught up, I think, with the Jets is that he just couldn't, carry the team. He couldn't push the ball down the field, and they're playing man. Malcolm Butler, he did have an interception on McCown, but he was there for the taking. That secondary, Gilmore, I don't feel comfortable about New England's secondary that much either going away from that game. But really, Tom Brady is so special because in that first half, he's very timely. Every possible play that the guy has to make, he does. When it's 3rd and 5, he hit Amendola for that first down that then allowed the Cook throw over Claiborne. And that Cook throw is incredible. And with the Patriots, most teams would be conservative, try to go for field goals, but that drive really set the game in motion. Then I look at the second half, and yeah, if Safarian Jenkins makes that play, if that stands, obviously, and not a turnover, that's going to overtime. And I still can't comprehend, obviously, the decision that they were making about – I know he was bobbling the ball, but it's never like he released it from his hands or it goes over the pylon. I always thought JetsCentral that's kind of a Bush League type of a type of play anyway. You know what I mean? I always feel bad when a guy does actually do a touchback, or like when he does toss it over the pylon, because they're so damn close. It's not like the defense is making an exceptional play on you. It's kind of a freak thing. And it didn't even really happen. But to tell you the truth, it was a 10-point game at that time. So in the third quarter, I mean, I was watching that game and a lot of other games. The Jets, could they just not run the football? Is that what it came down to? Did the defense, did the secondary get a little tired? Did Cooks really hurt them? Kind of talk about how the third quarter kind of unraveled a little bit like the end of the second quarter.
Right. I think it started at the end of the second quarter, or in the midway end of the second quarter. I just feel like once the Patriots like got that breath or that life, and it kind of just jump started them. But not only that, I think it really just kind of put a hinder on the New York Jets coaching staff mentally, and they just started playing conservative, like afraid to lose or afraid to turn the ball over, which obviously happened. You know, McCown ended up throwing 2 interceptions, trying to force balls. And I mean, you know, like I was saying before, you know, it is really disappointing seeing how the coaching staff kind of had – because I love the game plan going in. You know, I thought we did a really good job of trying to just come out swinging, try to punch New England in the mouth. And I think we did that effectively early. But like I said, once New England started to kind of fight back a little bit, it's almost like the Jets just totally just said, you know what, we're pretty much good with 14 points. Let's just try to keep them under. And
play conservative, kind of afraid to win the game, afraid to take over the game. And that's where I think that McCown does have his shortcomings, Ian, you know, when I watch the guy. Like,
right. Yeah.
I'm just a big Bryce Petty fan. I just think Bryce Petty, if you put him in Jared Goff's shoes, he would be successful. If you put him with Bill O'Brien, maybe. And I just don't think we're ever going to see him. Now, McCown, you know, he doesn't turn the ball over. He was very accurate the entire game. So got to give him credit for moving up and down the field. And I guess you really had to like the showing. I mean, I know Jamal Adams got flagged, but it seems like you guys, like Darren Lee was doing a nice job covering Gronkowski. It seems like you guys on defense have some young guys that you can really kind of get behind on this defense.
Yeah, that's the one kind of driving point and the one kind of the optimistic viewpoint of a lot of fans this season, a lot of Jets fans, is that, you know, we have Jamal Adams and Darren Lee. Leonard Williams was a first round selection too. Marcus May. You know, we have a lot of young, talented players on this defensive unit. And like you just said, you know, it's easy to get behind these guys. And the one thing that it always comes down to with the New York Jets is the quarterback position. And it's just there's never an answer, you know. So I'm hoping this year's free agency class or this year's draft class, you know, we eventually find that answer, whether it be Josh Rosen or Josh Allen or signing a Kirk Cousins or something like that.
Sure.
But the first thing, you know, I think we have to do is I think we have to see what we have in the young guys, like you alluded to before with Bryce Petty. You know, Bryce Petty has all the physical tools. His arm is, I think it's a grade A arm. He's mobile. He's pretty accurate. He like we were just saying, he has zip on the ball. I think what it really comes down to with Bryce Petty is just the mental aspect of the game and kind of throwing with anticipation, really reading a defense. And, you know, he's coming along, and we can't expect every quarterback to be Andrew Luck, come in and just run the system perfectly. But at the same time, you know, this is year 3 or 4. I think it's year 4 for him. So
yeah,
at some point this season, I want to see him play. But, you know, for the time being, I'm happy with McCown because I think he's getting the job done and the Jets are competitive.
Well, you look at like Sean Mannion and Connor Cook, and there's guys like even Connor Cook at Michigan State. I knew Connor Cook, like no matter how like cerebral he is, like how intangible, how incredible his interviews would be, that he would never pan out to be an NFL quarterback, Ian. You know, I just knew that about him because his arm strength was so weak, and same with maybe EJ Manuel. And a lot of times my theory too is that a lot of these teams will draft a Sean Mannion just so they'll have like a backup that will never be threatening to the starter guy, but you can always kind of have him as a cerebral kind of Matt Flynn backup, if that kind of makes sense. You know, he's not going to scare you. But to me, Bryce Petty has claws. Like Bryce Petty can actually – he actually adds excitement. He does have an NFL arm. Now his release is slow. The way he goes through progressions is a little bit slow. I wanted to ask you one more question about the Jets. And then I think an interesting topic, I'd like to talk a little bit about these draftees because we love talking about the quarterbacks on this show, if you don't mind.
Totally up for it.
So John Morton, he to me, he just seemed kind of stale, too conservative, a little bit of a you ever like a teacher that would nitpick you in school, kind of, that just doesn't really let you have a lot of fun, doesn't think outside the box that much, a guy that is very, to the book, doesn't want to turn the ball over. It kind of stifles you. I don't know. I'm just not the biggest John Morton guy in the world, but what do you think about John Morton?
So far, first off, I definitely see what you're saying, and I agree with a little bit, and I disagree with some. I think the one thing we all have to keep in mind, Jets fans included, is that this is his first season, as an offensive coordinator, doing what he wants, calling his plays, his system. We haven't seen it before. So, and I mean, we're not even a whole season through. We're only 6 or 7 weeks in. And I think not only do we have the young players learning, but I think he, as an offensive coordinator, I think he's kind of going through the motions too. What's working, what's not working, what's kind of clicking with the team, and what's the team responding to, what's kind of not working. And I think he's just trying to obviously I think he's doing his best, but I think right now with not that much talent on the Jets, I think he's just trying to kind of fight his way through and kind of, or just throwing things at the wall and just seeing what sticks.
Sure.
But I definitely see what you're saying when it comes to just being really stale and really vanilla and just kind of just having this basic West Coast system. But at the end of the day, McCown is our quarterback, and Curse is probably our best receiver, and there's rumors of him not even making the team in Seattle. So virtually we have no running game either. So, I mean, we don't really have that much to work with.
Sure.
But, like I said, I do 100% see what you're saying about John Morton. Let's get in this draft talk. I'm anxious for it.
Let's do it. Do you want to tee up a question for me about the draft?
I do. I got a big question for you. Being that you're a Giant fan.
Sure.
The Giants, unfortunately, are 1-5, or what are they? 1-5 or 1-6?
They are 1-5.
1-5. Proudly. So if the Giants finish in the top 3, picking in the top 3,
mm-hmm.
I guess this is kind of a 2-part question. A, who do you want to draft? And B, would you be okay with a quarterback? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a nice hot button topic there. I'm glad you asked that question. So after Denver, I was looking at the Giants schedule, and first of all, I was completely stunned by the result at Denver. I mean, they were a 13-point favorite going into Denver, Ian. I mean, every single team that's gone into Denver, whether it be Oakland or Dallas, I mean, Denver stifled them. Trevor Siemian looks incredible at home. And just seeing Orleans Darkwa being able to run, this is a team that couldn't run the ball at all. So to win that game was really impressive. I actually do think that with the talent of this defensive roster now, if they lose to Seattle, that's the thing. It's 1-6, and then it's bye week. If that game is – I actually expect the game to be close, so the coaching staff is going to be – you're still going to have continuity in the coaching staff. I'm a big fan of Davis Webb. I really think Davis Webb is a guy that if you ever listen, he has all the intangibles, like all the interview skills. He talks like he's Tom Brady. He's motivated to a point that I've almost never seen any other prospect. He's a special, special kid. And I'm putting some eggs in the Davis Webb basket, so to say. I think the guy does have talent. He doesn't have an incredible upside like a Josh Allen, I think, is a guy that could be like an Aaron Rodgers just in terms of how quickly he can get the ball from point A to point B. But for the New York Giants, Ian, this is a team with defensive talent, with veteran players. You have Jason Pierre-Paul. You have Olivier Vernon, Janoris Jenkins. These are older, veteran defensive players. It's not time for a rebuild whatsoever. I know you're going to be in the top 3, and it's a one-in-a-generational type of guy who could be coming out in this draft. So my answer for the New York Giants would be, if it's top 3, then it needs to be Saquon Barkley. because this is a guy that can run all over the field. This is a guy that you can plug and play for a long, long time. You have Eli, you have Davis Webb. The Giants are not a rebuilding team. They're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys when they went 2-14, because they're going to get an easy schedule next year. You saw the talent, like Ian, them beating Denver. That wasn't a fluke, right? The way that they just beat down the Denver Broncos. It wasn't like it was a punt return. It wasn't like it was a pick. They did have pick sixes, but it wasn't like completely crazy how they won that game. So I actually expect the Giants to come back this year, 7-8 wins at least.
Wow.
The team is actually, and I know this is going to be a hot take, but the team's actually better with Odell Beckham, because as a quarterback, it is a lot easier to function when you don't have to force feed it to a guy.
So you mean the Giants are a lot better without Odell Beckham, right?
I actually do think so, because now they run the football. They play conservative, they play conservative style. And I think Odell's a headache for Eli Manning. He would never admit that, because going against Odell Beckham would be like going against like the new school, culture in the NFL, if that makes any sense.
Correct. Yeah. My 2 cents on the whole Giant situation.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you. Yeah, I'm going to ask you in a second about Beckham, but right now, I think based off of last week's game against the Denver Broncos, I counted them out. Not going to lie to you, I had the Denver Broncos winning, but I thought it was going to be closer than what people thought. But I still had the Broncos winning by like at least 7 to 10 is where my kind of range was. Just because, I mean, everybody is so quick to kind of say, well, Beckham's out. But also, I think Shepard is out and Brandon Marshall's out too. So the younger guys have to step up for New York. And I think the reason why they were able to kind of win the game, because, I mean, Denver is no slouch. Denver has a A-plus defense. They are realistically a top 3 team, especially in Denver. They are really tough. And, all things considered, prime time, all everything in that nature. And a lot of people have the Denver Broncos winning. But I think the reason why the Giants came through is because, like you just said, they started running the ball to Darkwan these guys. And whether or not you're running the ball effectively or not, if you're committed to it, you're helping out the defense. Because the more time that the defense has to sit on the bench, the better they will be. When the Giants play all like throwing like 40 to 50 times a game, I mean, I love throwing the ball. Like Big 12 is my favorite. Mm-hmm. But at the pro level, and Eli Manning's throwing it like 45 times, and it's just 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out. This defense, not only is it stressful physically, but it's also stressful mentally. So I think with the Giants being able to just run the ball effectively, not have any distractions like Odell, like throw me the ball, I need to make play, or Brandon Marshall, like, complaining about him trying to get the ball or anything like that. I think Eli just kind of went out there, distributed like a point guard, ran the ball. Granted, I mean, they did do a really good job in the run blocking game. I thought the offensive line did really well in that category. But, they ran the ball, and I think overall that helped the defense out because, like I just said, the more you run the ball, the better the defense plays.
I thought Ben McAdoo was a one-trick pony like he is the Big 12, and that his only style is throwing it 45 times a game. And it's nauseating to watch. I don't know if did you watch Giants-Eagles last year on Thursday night towards the end of the year?
I did. That's when they had the really cool helmets.
Yeah, and that's what it was
ones.
Color rush, blackout. You saw Eli Manning. He looked like a corpse. He looked like he was 90 years old playing the position. And that's just not an effective way for this guy to play. He only threw it 19 times. And the Giants, if you're absolutely right. Like, that's part of our evolution of watching football. Like, I never would analyze time of possession in ways that I kind of do now watching the game. And time of possession is just so crucial, not turning the ball over. But you look at Eric Flowers, and he's a guy that has a lot of success in the run game. The Giants, when you're dropping back all the time, Eric Flowers is really big and physical. He can't slide his feet as much, and he's going to get tired if you're always just forcing these big NFL linemen to do that. So now that they were under center, they were wasting clock. In that Green Bay game, Ian, like in the playoffs, the Giants, if you probably watched the Hail Mary Aaron Rodgers wild card game.
Of course.
Defense was amazing pretty much for what it should have been the entire game, because for 8 possessions they kept on giving it right back to Aaron Rodgers with no time off the field, and they held that whole first half to maybe 6 points, and then the Hail Mary happened. That was a fluke play, but other than that, it was some of the best defense you've ever seen. And then the Packers would send all the receivers deep in the first half, so the Giants had no gas in the second half, and they couldn't sustain any drives. They couldn't hold the ball. And in the NFL, to win, you need to have those 4 or 5 minute drives just smashing the football. And it just comes down to the trenches. And even when we were talking about the Patriots game, the Jets had 3rd and 1s, you just got to be able to run the ball, consistently. And now with the Giants, without Beckham and without, Brandon Marshall, they're going to focus even more on running it. And that's what's so exciting about the Seattle game.
Yeah, definitely. Now, it's going to be really interesting kind of that the Giants play in Seattle, how they deal with the noise. Oh, one quick thing, too.
It's actually home.
Oh, it is? Okay.
That would be a dead loss going to Seattle.
Yeah, I was going to say
Seattle. That's probably the scariest place, right, for your team to play, is going to Seattle.
Yeah, either there or Arrowhead. Arrowhead's really tough.
Arrowhead, yeah, but the fans are kind of nice there. It's not like cloudy and rainy, like the Legion of Boom, like when you go to Seattle. Ooh, it's like Foxborough, kind of.
Yeah, for real. I feel like every time I turn on the TV and I'm watching a Seahawks game, it's like gray. There's not like the sun is not out. It's always raining or something.
Exactly.
It's always funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the one thing I kind of always think about, just kind of putting myself in like the shoes of maybe like a Damon Harrison or like Olivia Vernon, when the Giants are consistently going 3 and out, or throwing the ball and like the clock is stopped and they're not moving the change. They're not moving the clock or anything like that. I can't, I'm trying just to put myself in, one of the defensive players' shoes and just kind of, after the defense gets a stop, kind of just thinking to myself, walking back to the sidelines, barely getting some water and then having to go back out because it's a 3 and out and no clock has ran off. So, or no time has ran off the clock. So, it must be tough physically and mentally for the New York Giants defense. But overall, I think if the Giants stick to running the ball, I think they can stack up some wins.
I think they can, absolutely. And the defense, I really think it's going to play with some urgency. But I wanted to ask you, do you really think that with Odell Beckham on the field, it sounds silly because he's such a talent, but 1, would you like him on the New York Jets? And then 2, do you think that the Giants are a better team with or without him on the field?
That was my actual question I was going to ask you, which was, should the Giants move on without Odell Beckham, I think, at the end of the season? So I'll answer your questions real quick. Would I like him on the New York Jets? It's such a crazy thing to think about, being he's probably – I want to say the second or most popular player in the league behind Tom Brady, if not the most popular.
Yeah.
He's definitely electrifying. He's definitely talented. I don't think he's the best receiver in the league. I still think it's Julio Jones. Man, that's crazy. It's the first time I'm thinking about it right now, so it kind of caught me off guard.
Best receiver in football too. I mean, I look at Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's a talent as well. Julio's catch radius is better. And there's guys that can go up and make really special catches and plays. But when you throw it to Odell, I mean, his ability to house it, is pretty incredible, to take it 70 yards. And I think Odell Beckham, I think he's the most athletic guy in the whole NFL, maybe one of the freakiest athletes in the league.
Yeah, him, Von Miller. I mean, there are some athletic, physical specimens out there. But going back to your question, man, the New York Jets, the thing is that it's you have all this good that comes with Odell, the catching, the playmaking. He's great in the red zone. I love it how you could just run a simple little slant or a curl flat, and every time he gets the ball, there's potential of him getting into the end zone. But the problem is, and the thing that kind of makes me pump the brakes a little bit on the idea, because if you would have said Antonio Brown or Julio Jones or whoever, I would have been yeah, sign me up. But the thing is with Beckham is that it's like it's just he comes with so much, and it's not like one of these things where it's like a Joe Mixon thing where it's like something happened in the past, like Jameis Winston, like with the whole crab leg situation, like something happened in the past. Hopefully he doesn't do it again. Mm-hmm. With Odell, it's kind of like, it's going to happen again, whether he's getting, into verbal arguments with corners and it's just throwing off his game, or doing these like touchdown celebrations, arguing with teammates. What's going to happen with him. And that's the part that number one, that kind of scares me as a Jet fan, because I think the Jets have a lot of like team unity right now, and a lot just like that brotherhood mindset. And I don't like the idea of somebody coming in and kind of shaking that up like a Brandon Marshall. I mean, he was with the Jets last season, and as soon as he left, the locker room just united. And of course it wasn't all Brandon Marshall, but he played a big part in it. And I think the second thing that makes me kind of pump the brakes on the whole OBJ's, him coming to the Jets as well, is, the contract situation. I know Beckham wants a ton of money. Granted, the Jets do have the money to pay him, but is it really worth paying him like quarterback type money for his baggage? Like, is it worth it is basically my thing. So I would have to sleep on that to make I guess a more informed answer. But
I really think I guess I kind of want to answer your question about Odell at this point.
Yeah, go for it.
And I'm going to come across like I dislike the guy, but like Odell Beckham, like if you're just talking about hanging out, like the guy is just first of all, I think the guy's a nice guy. Like it's nothing against him. And like you even mentioned some of the other guys with baggage, like those guys did serious wrongs, and Odell's not really a serious wrong guy. But I think he's distracting for a quarterback, and like Calvin Johnson with Matt Stafford got better when Calvin left, because then he could take control of the offense. With Odell, you are forced to throw the ball to him. If he doesn't have stats, even if the Giants win and he doesn't have stats, like fantasy football is so prevalent, the culture of young people watching football so prevalent, they're just going to look at Odell Beckham and just compare him, and then Odell's going to feel bad about himself. And then even if the team's winning and Odell's not catching balls, I mean, he'll probably say that he'll be happy, but you could just tell Ian that he won't, because I've listened to Odell, and Odell has tons of aspirations to rack up all these stats to be the best to ever play. He's the type of guy, honestly, and there's not a problem with this. He'd rather catch, make over 200 yards in a losing effort than probably only catch 5 balls for like 25 yards. And that is why just, with the Giants, and what I like in the NFL is a team that runs it first, and then Eli can go play action. And I'm not a huge fan. Even the New Orleans Saints, they have guys that are effective, like a Ted Ginn, like Michael Thomas, and you can find receivers everywhere to do that job for you. If the Giants sign Beckham, it actually is looking like, unfortunately, they are. This franchise,
really, I didn't know that.
Is going to go in the tank for a long time, because at wide receiver, you need defense, you need running the football.
Well, let me ask you this. See, me personally, I thought they were leaning more towards the opposite end of the spectrum and just letting him go, because they have contracts like Vernon, Jenkins, Snacks Harrison.
Yeah.
These are big contracts, and to pay Odell what he wants, I feel like the Giants have to address the offensive line too. You have to look at money being spent there. There's only so much money that can go around. You know what
Shepard, Eli Manning. I know that, Webb's a rookie, and some of these, Sterling is a rookie, but, Mara really likes the talent of Odell. He said today that the injury is not going to have anything to do with the contract. And the only way the Giants could probably survive the Odell thing is if it's an 8-9 win team, because then maybe they'd reconsider and think, the team's better without him, because Orleans Darkwa never got these opportunities. And with Eli Manning, like Evan Ingram played his best game, and it's because, he's actually getting opportunities to step up and play. If you have a tight end, you have Sterling Shepard, it's not the end of the world. And then if you don't sign Odell, you can use that money. I always love using the money to get a tremendous defense. And,
yeah, because Continue.
Yeah, and Ian, I kind of wanted to end my point and ask you this, is that when I look at you guys, the Jets, or especially the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they hit on a Josh Rosen or Josh Allen, this is a team that reminds me of the Sanchez Jets in 2010 and 11, or even Carson Wentz. You're seeing it now, where you have tremendous defense, and if you have a rookie or second-year guy that's so competent like Dak or Carson, then you can honestly get deep into the playoffs. And I think that's kind of the way to go, because when you pay the quarterback big money, just like Russell Wilson's getting now, Seattle and their dominance, it's just falling on the defensive side.
Right, and that's the thing that I was just saying is like, how much money is there to go around? I feel like if the Giants go ahead and pay Odell Beckham, what he wants. I mean, I'm not really sure the exact number. I mean, you'd have a better guess than me, but I'm assuming it's over 20 million.
Oh, yeah, it's not modest standards.
Right, and I think, yeah, if you go ahead and you do that, other areas of the team will pay for it. Whether it be letting go Jenkins because you don't have enough money to afford him, or trying to get, basically saying, look, we can't improve the offensive line because we have to pay Beckham and Snacks and all these guys. It's funny. Odell Beckham kind of reminds me of like a situation where like in school or at work or something, and like there's like this super hot girl and you want to go over and talk to her, but at the same time, she just comes with so much baggage and, all these things. And it makes you kind of just sit there and say, is it worth it? Because, I mean, she definitely looks good, but at the same time, it's like, I could be paying for this in the future.
In the long run. Just taking your money. You're not doing well in school.
Yeah.
But, man, so it's tough, though, because you would probably still take the girl for a short while,
Yeah, and that's the kind of like thing that I've always kind of like thought about this whole situation, at least when it comes to, the Giants paying him or any team paying him. Like, it's super enticing, but at the same time, we all know he's gonna come with issues. There might be some locker room problems. There might be some, bickering, and we're always going to be in the media. Same kind of thing with like Tebow. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like a circus.
It is, and when you have a receiver, though, they you need to force feed him the ball. It's more about the style of the offense. I love running the ball on first and second down, taking clock. That's the way to really win games, is to limit those mistakes. That's why, as we can bounce around the NFL a little bit, that's why I really like what the Rams are doing this year. I think that the Rams are special because they can run it with Todd Gurley. And then on, second down, they can, then throw. They make the offense simple and easy. And, of course, for Eli to throw it 19 times. So I'm totally in favor of limiting distractions. I always think that's a huge deal. And you look at the Bills and they got rid of Sammy Watkins. Everyone thinks it's this huge deal. It's really not. If I was a GM, I'd want selfless guys in the locker room at all times. So I couldn't be higher on the chemistry component that we're talking about.
Right. I think it always comes down to, when building a team from a GM's point of view, what are you looking for in players? Like, I want players, not just saying this because he's a Jet, but I want players like Jamal Adams, where he loves football so much, he probably play for minimum wage, like he just loves the game. Where I feel like some players in the league, like what comes with it. And of course, like who doesn't like what, millions of bucks and being famous and, all these different luxuries.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, are you playing football for that stuff, or are you playing football because you like it and that stuff is just extra benefit? So I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. I want to hit on a couple of other storylines of the NFL, as we kind of look forward and also back. I mean, what did you think of Big Ben, Ian? I mean, this guy was getting so much crap from the mainstream media, Big Ben, about, is he finished? And he said this little like blur of a quote that he doesn't have it anymore or whatever. And were you stunned to see Pittsburgh go and beat Kansas City? Or were you like, you know what? Pittsburgh has historically played well at Arrowhead. It's still Mike Tomlin. There's veterans. It's Alex Smith. I totally could have seen that coming.
Yeah, I wasn't shocked by the Steelers winning. And I feel like every season, when we get these undefeated teams, everybody thinks that they're going to go 16-0, but it never really happens. At some point, these teams do lose. Um, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they haven't really been playing Steeler football this season so far. But at the same time, I mean, I just feel like you can't be one of those fans that sit there and say the Steelers are done when they have extreme amounts of talent at all across the board. They've had success with the same unit. I just feel like it's naive to basically just write off the Steelers, especially with the veteran leadership, the playmakers, the mixture between young and older players. So
Sure.
wasn't surprised by the outcome.
Yeah. And I still think that the Steelers are a very legitimate team. I look at Kansas City and they're pretty good, but not an incredible team. I still like New England. I still like Tom Brady. I'm still not giving up in the New England Patriots whatsoever in the AFC. In fact, a lot of the top dogs in the league are still around. I mean, what happened to Aaron Rodgers, that really threw the league for a loop with him going down.
I agree. I agree, man. It's like I remember watching Aaron Rodgers get hurt on that play because it was I was watching the Jet game, obviously the Jets Patriot game, and they showed a little update, and my collarbone started hurting just from watching that hit. Definitely tough. It's a tough break for Green Bay because they were looking like Super Bowl contenders. I actually had them winning the Super Bowl this season. So big loss for Green Bay, but it's just tough. It's a tough pill to swallow for Packer fans.
Do you think that I think Aaron Rodgers could be the type of guy that we look back on and always say, what if with the guy? I mean, I think the Seattle loss was maybe the worst loss that the guy's ever had, maybe the only game that I can remember where Aaron really underperformed. I mean, even in the Atlanta game, he didn't have the defense with the Falcons, Packers last year, but the Seattle game when the guy couldn't recover the onside kick, that game's going to kill his legacy. And then just looking back at Aaron games, I know Kaepernick got him a couple of times, San Francisco, and he didn't play amazing football. But who knows if I think the guy can maybe win one more championship tops, but I don't think there's any way that he's going to be a multi-year guy winning the championships with the defense, with the type of luck that he's getting. It's very similar to Brett Favre, actually, if you kind of look at his career too.
Yeah, I mean the Green Bay Packers, they just it just amazes me. Like, I mean, I'm 22 years old. I've been a Jet fan my whole entire life, and I've never had that top 5 quarterback. You could even make the argument we've never even had like the top 10 year in year out guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Chad Pennington's my favorite player of all time,
Yeah.
and I mean Testaverde was good for us, but that was like way back in the day. And he wasn't like the franchise, like we didn't draft him and this and that. Like he wasn't our guy for 10 years, like a Matt Ryan, a Stafford, Rivers, and Roethlisberger and stuff.
Sure.
And it just amazes me on how like I've watched the Jets my whole life, and we haven't had one. And then there are these two franchises in particular, Green Bay, that have like a decade with Favre, and then they go for like another decade with Rodgers. That's like it's insane. And you can say the same exact thing with the Indianapolis Colts, from Manning to Luck, two great quarterbacks. Just so mmany years of great quarterback play, and it just amazes me on how these teams cannot put together, I guess, stable rosters for these quarterbacks to win multiple championships, because it's just so frustrating. And I mean, of course, you're not going to have a stacked roster for 10 years, but at least 3 or 4 seasons, I would like my quarterback to have protection and to have some weapons to throw to and whatnot. So it's just amazing.
Yeah, and you really look at the you look at the defense of these teams, and maybe it's because like Peyton is ordering the offense around and kind of the culture is like a passing offense, so it's very hard to have a stacked defense, and towards the beginning of their career, towards the end of their career, they're going to then have these teams are then going to have, better teams around them. But you look at Indianapolis, they needed to tank to get Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck's a special cerebral talent. We need to see if the guy can stay healthy, because if he can't stay healthy, it's going to be a disappointing career. Now, it's not RG3, and maybe you look at RG3 and its injuries, it's the way that he played at Baylor, and the guy did have unbelievable talent, Robert Griffin, but Andrew Luck is a guy that is cerebral, and he's a guy that hangs into the last second all the time, and maybe to his detriment. But really looking at the New York Jets, I mean, I don't think that they've really taken into account the looking at the quarterback process. They're kind of just hoping and hoping somebody pans out. I mean, with Hackenberg, unfortunately, he just has really slow feet and not chronically hurt. Bryce Petty, Sanchez was a guy out of USC who didn't play very long, kind of a 6'2" guy, not an incredible talent. And that's why it would be exciting, when we look at this draft, Ian, I think that I look at Josh Allen and Josh Rosen, and the great news about getting both of those guys is I think they're insanely talented and they don't have huge flaws, especially Josh Rosen's the most defined prospect. I look at Sam Darnold and the other guy, even Sam Darnold, I think he could have a problem throwing the football. His motion's not like Josh Allen or Josh Rosen to me.
I totally agree with you. And I feel like, the whole Sam Darnold situation, it's just so – I just feel like you get killed, like, if you criticize him. And, he does have flaws, especially mechanically. He doesn't always set his feet. He has a weird, funky motion. And, of course, you can get away with that. I mean, Carson Wentz has a elongated throwing motion. Mm-hmm. So does Alex Smith. They just make better decisions, when throwing the ball. But I look at Sam Darnold's game. Is he a good quarterback prospect? Yes. Does he have a lot of tools that, NFL pro coaches can work with? Yes. But does he have some flaws that he needs to work on? Of course. Mechanics being probably number one, taking care of the ball, starting off more quickly, because I don't know if you've seen how many USC games you've watched this season, mm-hmm. but just seems like the Trojans get off to such a slow start every week, and it kind of reminds me of the I think it was the 2014 Florida State team, yes, with Jameis Winston, and he would just throw picks after mm-hmm. picks after picks, and then in the fourth quarter they would destroy,
survive. And they would survive.
I mean, they would go down at halftime like 35-17, then mm-hmm. they come out on top 42-35, and it's like, what's going on? USC is kind of the same.
Leaking by.
Right, yeah. USC is kind of the same thing because both are really talented. I just think there's the few differences between Darnold and Winston is Winston's coaching staff was much better. You look at Winston's college system. He played in a traditional pro-style system. Jimbo Fisher, the coach over at Florida State, expects and puts a lot of expectations and responsibility on the quarterback's shoulders. Whereas USC, it's kind of just a basic spread, half-field read kind of system. So you can make the argument, well, although the outcomes are kind of the same, Jameis has a lot more on his plate, where Darnold just has this, this system where many, many, many quarterbacks can run to a T. So that's kind of my take on Darnold, at least thus far this season.
Absolutely. And on this podcast, the Mecca, we are going to talk a lot about the quarterback prospects coming out and some really exciting news. I just even as the NFL season ends, you look forward to the draft season and how these guys are going to project. There's even sleepers that are coming into the mix right now, so that's really exciting. You know what, Ian, I wanted to wrap up today's show, maybe a little rapid fire with some picks that you like for the NFL weekend, maybe a little gambling picks, and maybe give a couple of predictions either in college or pro football that you can kind of see going down here.
Cool. Let's rock. First prediction, I think the Falcons get back on track in Gillette Stadium and come out with a win.
Mm.
I love what this Atlanta Falcons offense did to the Patriots defense this Super Bowl, or this past Super Bowl, excuse me. I thought they were able to expose New England on a whole bunch of different fronts. And I think the Falcons are going to shock a lot of people because everybody's kind of writing off Atlanta, saying, oh, they just lost to Miami. You know, they lost to Buffalo, two home games in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Hmm.
Everybody's kind of writing them off, Super Bowl hangover and stuff. But now we have a Super Bowl rematch, and the game's going to be played in Gillette Stadium. And from what I've seen from this New England Patriot defense, it hasn't impressed me. You know, they lost to Carolina, they lost to Kansas City, Tampa Bay. I mean, without the special teams blunders, the Bucks could have won that game.
Yep.
Houston dropped a ton of points on them,
Oh, yeah.
and you know, in the Jet game, there was a questionable calls throughout the game. So, not many of these Patriot games have been like smooth sailing, to say the least. And I think
Right.
I think this Atlanta Falcons offense comes in as the most talented. I just basically think it comes down to Sarkisian's play calling and how they really want to attack this Patriot defense.
Yep, I could certainly see that because, you know, Julio, you know, let's see if he can get going. Taylor Gabriel, Hooker's going to be Austin. I don't, his name's not, it's Austin Hopper or Hooper.
Austin Hooper. Yeah, I think he was at Stanford.
Hooper's going to be a problem. And, you know, I could totally see because it's a bye week. I mean, it is New England. It's not a crazy spread. It's 3 points. That's going to be a fantastic game on Sunday night. Sunday night gets a good one. I look at two possible teams that could land upsets, like definitely covering for sure. I did a CJ Beathard review, so I don't know if I'm going to say I'm a CJ homer or not, but the guy really can read defenses, and he's accurate. And, you know, San Fran is feeling great about themselves. You know, they add Reuben Foster back to the mix. They finally come home after a couple of weeks on the road. They go to Levi Stadium again, play Dallas, and I think that it's going to be a fantastic game. I think the Niners are actually going to win outright without Ezekiel Elliott. Dallas is reeling personality-wise. I know they had a bye week, but I look at San Francisco.
Real quick, I think Zeke Elliott just got granted to play this week against the Niners. So does that throw a wrench in your prediction?
It would be you know, for the prediction, it would be, you know, more beneficial. I still think San Francisco wins. I'll still say that. Well,
awesome.
I think they'll easily cover. Okay, and then these are a couple of surprising spreads, kind of low spreads. Chiefs tomorrow versus the Raiders. Chiefs are only getting 3, and I know the game's in Oakland, but I just think Oakland's mentally checked out. I think Kansas City responds, really kills the Raiders.
Tough matchup. And I think this game is kind of the defining moment so far of the Chiefs season it's basically saying to Kansas City, are you guys for real? Are you guys going to respond from adversity by stomping the Oakland Raiders? Or are you guys going to come out flat and deflated that you guys lost and be the same old Chiefs?
Mm-hmm. And speaking of a defining game, I mean, the darling of the NFL season was Tampa Bay. And the way that Carson Palmer just lit them up, the way that they're reeling is Jameis healthy or not, the Bills off of a bye week, going to Rochester to play that game. And you look at how talented, like you have Atlanta winning, and I could see Atlanta winning. Every team in that division is 3-2, I believe. And that division is stacked. Like the Saints roll Green Bay, even with Brett Hundley, because I think the Saints defense is coming along, getting turnovers. Dennis Allen, it's really aggressive and really fun to watch. And I also think that the Bucs slide out of the mix this week officially to Buffalo.
I agree. I think Tyrod has a pretty good game. I actually have him starting in my fantasy thing. And kind of funny quick little note to say is Tyrod Taylor, a lot of Jets fans will kill me over this, but he's actually my favorite player in the league. I love his game. I love how he sat for 4 seasons, actually got a ring as a Baltimore Raven, sitting behind Joe Flacco. I feel like he learned a ton. I think he's poised. I like it how he's on the shorter end, but can still compete and keep the Buffalo Bills in games. And I think he's pretty underrated as far as being able to control the ball and not turn it over. So I could see the Bills winning. I actually have the Bills winning.
And my 3 favorite guys in the league I liked Manziel and Tebow both, honestly, just electric to watch every single week just to see what would happen. And then, I had to throw my boy Bryce in there just because Bryce, has dealt with so much adversity. It would just be so much fun to see him shine,
Yep.
So I definitely get the backup mix. And then the last thing is, man, I have a couple of college picks. I like Michigan. A lot of people sleeping on Harbaugh and Michigan, so I really like them to actually go to Penn State. And then a couple one that we've jostled about is LSU. I like LSU, but you happen to like the Rebels in this game.
Yeah, first off, I want to kind of touch on the Michigan game. So a lot of people are picking Penn State and jumping off this Wolverine bandwagon. They lost against the Spartans. Tough loss in Ann Arbor. Mm-hmm. Then they barely squeaked by Indiana, and it has a lot of people scratching their head. I think Harbaugh is really similar to Brady Hoke in the wins-loss category. I think through the same amount of years or something like that. So a lot of Michigan or a lot of people are jumping off this Michigan bandwagon. But I will say, Penn State hasn't played a defense this good. They can't just do these read option and these simple RPOs that they've been doing all season and expect to, mop the floor with Michigan. You have to find ways to get Saquon the ball, creative ways. You can't just do this simple read option and just think you're going to slam it down Michigan. I mean, the Wolverines, I know it is in Penn State, but I think the Wolverines defense is going to show up and they're going to be able to neutralize Barkley. If Penn State comes out all vanilla with their spread style of system, they have to get creative if they want to win this game.
Totally agree. I think this is where Jim Harbaugh, he was within one play of beating Ohio State last year. And I still think the guy's a money coach. The Florida State Orange Bowl was great. They just barely lost. He's recruiting at a great level, getting guys from everywhere to come play in Ann Arbor, except for a quarterback, which is kind of a big deal, except for quarterbacks. And I think, Jim, everybody's against him. It's a great spot, I really think, for Michigan this week. So that's going to be my upset pick. It's going to make college football even more fun, especially, because I just totally see McSorley and that offense getting bottled up, like you said, and and that's pretty much what I think. So, Ian, man, it was a blast. Really enjoyed this. We're going to go upload this, and I hope you guys check out our show, the Mecca here, and we're going to try to fire these up. Probably Tuesday and Thursdays will be our schedule, an occasional special episode like a Wednesday night. And Ian, man, it was an absolute blast.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate it. I had a blast doing it.
No doubt. We'll see you next time, guys.
Later.